Hello, my name is Georgia Davidson. I represent Troop 7858. In this presentation, I will be talking about my sound design for Alice in Wonderland, written by Lewis Carroll. Summary. Alice in Wonderland details the story of a girl named Alice who, while lounging outside with her sister, discovers an odd sight. A white rabbit with a pocket watch in his hand, dressed in deck of cards-esque garb, shouting, "I'm late, I'm late." Her curiosity piqued, Alice follows the anxiety-ridden rabbit inside his rabbit hole, and by chance is transported into the world of Wonderland. There, she faces the wrath of the Duchess and her cook, meets the whimsically mysterious Cheshire Cat and the hookah-smoking blue caterpillar, along with several other eccentric characters on her adventure. By the end, Alice escapes Wonderland due to her angering of the tyrannical Queen of Hearts and returns to the normal world. This slide asks, what are some of your responsibilities as being a sound designer? So for this show, my responsibilities of being a sound designer included searching for sound effects along with music we have in the background. So this can be transition music, as said before, sound effects. And I usually use either YouTube or a app called Epidemic Sounds. I use both of those quite frequently. And also creating and playing sound cues off a device during rehearsals as well as performances. So that is what I do largely during shows. And we use a system called Go Button to do that. And by doing this, I run the sound for the shows. This is how I do that. So those are my two main responsibilities in this show as well as many other shows. My inspiration for Alice in Wonderland largely was fueled by the 1951 film of the same name. In order to acquaint myself with the characters as well as the story, I watched the film and took note of many aspects, including the sound effects as well as the mood of several of the scenes that are originally in the book. Because the movie is largely different from the book, but just based off of the characters in the movie, I tried to kind of draw things from that. But yes, the movie largely inspired me in the choices that I made. Outer influences, the original style of Alice in Wonderland. I was largely influenced by the time period in which the show took place, which is the mid to late 1800s. The movie, as I said before, was also heavily influential in my decision making. Although different from the book, the characters were largely similar that were in both, so I tried to draw some inspiration from that. But also the Royal Ballet's production of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, which is a ballet that is essentially the book Alice in Wonderland, but it is largely without dialogue. So I did get influenced by that quite a bit. What would I be willing to compromise in my design? I would be willing to compromise on many of my selected pieces. This is because collaboration is very important when it comes to my sound design, meaning I need to collaborate on sound decisions with my director. Usually during Tech Week, me and my director, we will run through the show together and we will pick our sound cues and where we feel like we need them. And through sharing our ideas, I'm usually willing to compromise if we both have different ideas and his does turn out to be better. So yes, I'd be willing to compromise on some, but still I would have defended some of my choices, like especially with some of the transition music, because I do feel like it fits it. So yes and no, I'd be willing to compromise some things. So what would I like to have changed about my sound design? Or my sound design experience? I would have enjoyed a better selection of sound effects and sound cues, i.e. the rabbit's horn, Alice's growing and shrinking. Although I am provided with a large amount of resources in finding sounds, it is still very difficult to find the perfect sound for a specific scene. So that is what I would probably like to change, is that I would have a larger selection. Okay, so this slide asks, how did other technical elements of Alice in Wonderland affect sound design? So largely, light cues affect my sound cues. So I think this is probably in every show, but for example, when new scenes open within the show, sound and lights usually have to fire together. This means that I work very closely with our lighting designer, and who also runs our lights, and I work very closely with them to make sure that we go off at the same time and that it all looks nice and it sounds good. Also, the set affects my sound design due to the fact that the timing of my cues varies on how long it takes to change the set and to switch scenes. This can also be said with actors, seeing how fast they speak their lines, and just the timing of it really does largely depend on the set and some of the characters. And then this slide asks, what challenges was I faced with in mixing the sound design or mixing the sound for Alice in Wonderland? I found myself getting frustrated in the lack of sound cues. I've said that before, but it is a challenge that I was faced with. And the autonomy I had over my sounds, I also found challenging. I do feel like this is with every show, but the power you have over your own kind of style, that does get a little challenging, because I do worry about whether or not it will fit or whether or not it will look and sound good. So that is probably two of the biggest challenges I faced. Okay, so when I first heard the sound, I thought it fit the rabbit perfectly, because I think it is quite literally entitled, like, Hurry Up or something like that. And the rabbit is a very anxiety-ridden character who's always racing around. So a sound that is, racing and fast, but it's still classical, like this version of Alice in Wonderland, I think it fit the rabbit very well, and that is why I chose it. And then lastly, we have the second example, which is the Queen of Hearts entrance. Okay, so the reason I picked this sound out for the Queen of Hearts entrance in particular is because when I was listening to it, I found myself feeling, a little scared, a little off-put by it, which I feel encapsulates the Queen of Hearts perfectly, and the reaction she would genuinely receive when she entered a room. She is scary, she's tyrannical, she is meant to strike fear into the hearts of others, and I feel like that sound fit it perfectly. I feel like it fit her perfectly. So yes, thank you for listening. Once again, this is Georgia Davidson from Troop 7858. Thank you.